Welcome to the Orlando Sentinel's interview for the Orange County Tax Collectors Race, which features incumbent Scott Randolph, who has been in the role for more than a decade now, and prior to that was a member of the state legislature, and David Freeman, who is the first candidate to challenge Randolph since that first race. This contest will likely be decided in the August 20th Democratic primary, though if there is a write-in candidate, who will force the final vote onto the November ballot, which means that Republicans and non-party affiliated voters won't get a real chance in this race. We're sorry. And I will also say at the start that Mr. Freeman has raised some concerns about Mr. Randolph's handling of some contracts with private tag agencies. We will give both candidates a chance to address that before we close. But for the majority of this interview, they have agreed to focus on what they would do if they're elected and the issues they see facing the tax collector's office. And they have agreed that there will be no back and forth and no follow-ups. So let's start with an obvious question.
Good. Yes, ma'am.
Why should this be an elected position? I know that Amendment 10 that was passed in 2018 mandates that it be an elected position, but should that constitutional provision be repealed? And let's start with Mr. Freeman.
I believe it should be reviewed. I personally don't think it should be an elected position. I am running for the office, but I personally don't think it should be an elected position. I think it's more of an admin position than it is a political position, but it is what it is today. It would be a little bit better if it was a nonpartisan elected position, in my opinion, to give the voice to more people in Orange County than a partisan position. That's my take on that.
Thank you
I know
very
there's
much.
been.
Mr. Randolph.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sure. I was waiting for you. Well, I know there's been a debate about with some people, but in reality, you could say that about almost any elected position, right? It's about how much direct accountability do you want, and do you think different functions of government should have? There are clearly people out there right now that want to consolidate power. I mean, take Governor DeSantis, who's taken over board after board, right? From local taxing districts here in Central Florida to airport authorities to municipal-owned utility boards. I always joke, by the time he's out of office, your local zoning and planning board may be appointed all by governor. And so, and what happens there is people are placed on those boards with very little knowledge about the things they now oversee, including even things like the Public Service Commission, right? Huge utility thing, all government appointees. So it's really, I think, is a philosophical debate about how direct you want that responsibility to be. So it really comes down to having that direct accountability for different functions. And do voters always get it right? No, but I think that's the inefficiencies of democracy. But I think it's important that they have that chance to have that direct accountability. I quite frankly think in as many areas and as many responsibilities that they can have.
Over the years, Orange County has seen service centers open and close, private vendors opening tag offices. Are you satisfied that these locations are convenient and available for all residents of Orange County? And if not, what plans would you have for improving access to physical locations? Mr. Randolph, let's start with you.
Sure. You know what? The DMV functions are a beast. Obviously, it never stops. It never slows down, and it doesn't take a day off, right? But at the beginning of 2014, when the state fully absolved itself of customer-facing DMV services in 64 counties and closed the remaining driver's license offices, handing them over to the local tax collectors, despite the state doing that, more than half of the DL still in Orange County at that time, when I came to office in 2013, more than 150,000 DLs every year. My predecessor's entire plan was to add 5 staff people. Orange County was the typical DMV, and that employees were underpaid, and it was simply accepted that people would wait 3 to 4 hours for service. In my tenure, we have doubled the number of front counter employees and built expanded offices like West Oaks and Lee Vista that are the two largest DHMV offices in the state. We've led the way in Florida on many initiatives such as Tag Express and queuing technology for efficient appointments. We see 78% of appointments within 15 minutes of their appointment time. And I'd go up against any industry that has 27,000 appointment slots every week and keep 78% of them within 15 minutes. And we do that with most appointment slots going out only 1 to 3 days. You may have seen, there was just a story out of Miami-Dade just last week about how there's 4-month waits for appointments. And so now people show up at 2 in the morning to try to get in those offices. That just doesn't happen here. And in addition to those DMV offices, we have made sure that more than half of our frontline employees are bilingual and represent the diversity of this county. But so the DMV may be a beast, but it's a beast that I think we've tamed.
All right, Mr. Freeman, same question.
There are 7 DMV offices in Orange County today and 3 private tag agencies. The private tag agencies are basically owned by friends of Mr. Randolph, including Mr. Andrew Bell that worked for Mr. Randolph at the Orange County Tax Collector's Office and is one of his largest donors. The reason I'm mentioning this,
Mr.
there's another
Freeman, I
gentleman
would
by the
like
name
to
of,
remind you that you agreed
I understand.
you agreed to
Talking
address
about
this
the
at the end of the
locations of the
interview.
offices. There was a tag agency or a DMV in Apopka. I used to own land in Apopka. I know Apopka very well. I remember the tag agency there. That tag agency was shut down, supposedly to save $150,000 to the taxpayers of Orange County. That tag agency was reported by by the Orlando Sentinel. It was shut down in 2021. Conveniently, in 2022, another tag agency was opened there, private tag agency by Mr. Jason Strochek and Mr. Palumbo, who are responding to an RFP from 2015 that was put out by the Orange County Tax Collector's Office. So we need smaller tag agencies, smaller DMVs throughout the county, not 7. We need at least 15 to 16. And we cannot shut down a tag agency and open another one privately in the same city like Apopka.
I'd like to reply to that because that's full of falsities.
Mr. Randolph, we had agreed that there wouldn't be any response. We are going to
Yeah, but
address this
I've
at
been
the end of the
personally
interview.
attacked on something
but
with falsities.
Mr. Randolph,
I got personally attacked on
please.
falsities, and I want to correct the record.
we
That
will talk
Apopka
about the
agency was
contracts.
closed down in 2015
Mr.
and
Randolph,
consolidated with Claricona, West
Mr.
Oak,
Randolph,
and Winter Garden. So
we need to say this to the end of the interview.
and at least make. You know what? I can't sit here and let him just spew out falsities
well,
and not be able to get a chance to reply. And that's my only response to that.
and
That office was shut down in
okay,
2015.
we did agree that there would be no follow-up, but we will give both of you the opportunity to address this later in the interview. Thank you.
I wanted to ask one more specific driver's license question. Earlier this year, Scott Maxwell wrote about an outbreak of licenses that won't scan. This clearly appears to be a problem with the state DMV, but what can or what should local license offices do to help people with flawed licenses? And Mr. Randolph, if we'd ask you to direct your answer to that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, first of all, the Apopka office was shut down in 2015 because less and less business was getting in there. And we consolidated that with 3 offices that created the largest DHSMV office in the state within 15 minutes drive time of a much larger community. From there, the licensing situation obviously is a DHSMV function. And quite frankly, operating this office, the biggest challenge is dealing with the state. And you need serious people that have serious answers, that know serious knowledge of the situation. What we've done, obviously, is allowed anybody, right? We encourage, in fact, and we've encouraged and we've sent out social media, right? If you're worried about it, if you're about to get on a plane, come by our office. We have the little scanners. And so if it doesn't scan, we replace that license for free to make sure that you don't have an issue at TSA. honestly, this has been a finger pointing situation between the TSA vendor and the DHSMV vendor, but they finally got it worked out, I think. And so the newer driver's license are fine. But if you have one that has not been renewed in 3 to 4 years, and you're worried, right, that you haven't traveled in a while, yeah, please come by our office, right? It's right there at the help desk. They'll just scan it. They'll do a little scan thing, and if it doesn't scan, you can jump right in. I mean, it really brings out a larger issue that we have going into the future, which is a vastly underfunded DHSMV system that I think we should all be worried about at every level.
Thank you for that answer. Mr. Freeman, same question. What can local license offices do to help people with flawed licenses?
I have not been the head of the local license office, but I would reach out to someone. For example, Mr. Randolph just mentioned the airport. If you're trying to go through TSA, you're probably within an hour and a half of your flight. It's not going to work out that you're going to make an appointment, go to the DMV, get your license replaced, and go back to the airport. I believe since he did mention the airport, it's not a rebuttal, just he mentioned the airport. It is the worst place that you can have your license not scanned. It happened to me at the TSA office. I mean, at the TSA checkpoint. I was lucky I had my passport with me, even though I was going to Dallas, and I used my passport and I was able to board the flight. Other people that I know have not been able to board a flight because they were doing national flights and they could not get on the airplane. And you can't just waltz into the DMV and change your license. I believe in a situation like this, you can set up within the airport, working along with the airport authority, set up a kiosk or a point or someone within the airport that could expedite changing the license to one that can scan. Maybe it can be done within a couple hours, maybe on site. That's something that is doable. It is just a printing machine.
Great, thank you for that.
That is far from a simple printing machine. The security
Randolph.
functions on DL licenses is
Mr.
so
Randolph.
secure. It just
Mr. Randolph,
boggles the mind of
Mr. Randolph,
lack-
we're moving on to the next question. We can roll that into a closing statement if we need to. Thank you.
thank you.
Simple question on this one. Does the office provide enough support for Orange County residents who are falling behind in their property taxes? And are the tax sales of delinquent properties handled in a fair manner? And Mr. Freeman, we will start with you on that one.
I believe the office has done what they can. I have purchased many properties at auction that fell behind on their taxes. And from what I have seen and read about the people that did fall back on their taxes and their properties went to foreclosure, the Orange County Tax Collector's Office did try to help. So I don't see in my vision for the future, if I am elected, any further changes that could help these people, other than the person could sell their property, which I always recommend, or find someone that they can finance the taxes, sometimes even friends or family, to help them out of the situation. I don't believe Mr. Randolph could have done any better than he's doing right now with people that fall behind on their taxes.
Thank you for that. Mr. Randolph, same question.
We actually go well beyond the statutory minimum of trying to stop properties from going to tax deed sales. In fact, when I first came into office, there were 64 churches that were on the tax deed list. Luckily, they had fallen behind, and I was able to get a hold of them beforehand. And we made phone calls, mail, and personal visits to each one of those churches. And I always tell my staff, right, like our number one goal, we are the tax collector. Unfortunately, we do 2 of the 3 things that people hate the most, right? Collecting taxes and DMV. But we do that fairly and efficiently. That is efficiently, and that is our motto. And so we went out and visited those churches to make sure they understood. We got all the taxes paid because that's our job. But we did not have one church lose their property to tax deed. Every year we go out and visit churches now to make sure that they understand, right, that they're exempt from ad valorem properties, but not non-ad valorem assessments. Because once these local governments put those little stormwater fees and other things on their tax bill, it can become subject to tax deed. So we go out there and educate, and we have not had one church, not one nonprofit come close to a tax deed sale. By the way, we expanded that in the last 5 years. We also go out and do that to every homesteaded piece of property that may be coming up onto a tax deed sale. And we have saved thousands and thousands of homestead properties that way. Why? Because, maybe the spouse passed away that paid the bills, or the kids were supposed to pay the bill, or maybe somebody is slipping in dementia, whatever it is. And we go not just beyond those owners, we try to find like relatives that could help as well. And we do that. Is it required by statute? None of it. None of that is required by statute. But as a tax collector and as a taxpayer advocate, that is what our goal should be in this office. And I think that's what makes our office so great.
Thank you very much. Now, as promised, we have the question of whether Mr. Randolph should have accepted campaign contributions from companies that operate Orange County's 3 private tag offices. And Mr. Freeman, I'd like you to explain why you believe this situation impacts the services that residents of Orange County require from their tax collector. And then Mr. Randolph, I will give you an opportunity to respond. So Mr. Freeman, you're up.
There was a story on the Orlando Sentinel by Mr. I believe Kruchak, I forget his exact name, that mentioned that Mr. Randolph had a $100,000 war chest in campaign funds. I thought that was very high for a tax collector. I see it as an admin position. I truly don't see it as a political position. And I started digging into the campaign donations that Mr. Scott received. I'm not even going to mention Comcast right now, but they also donated to him. A Mr. Andrew Bell that worked for Mr. Randolph had 2 private tag agencies opened in Orange County. And the third tag agency was opened by Mr. Jason Strochak and a couple of his friends also. Mr. Randolph mentioned that the Apopka agency was closed in 2015. So in 2015, he puts out an RFP, a request for proposal, for a private tag agency. And his major donor, Mr. Strochak, opens a private tag agency in Apopka. So he closes the Apopka DMV, which made it convenient for everyone in Apopka. And then he opens up a private tag agency. So there is, in my opinion, an ethical donations by over 30 different companies owned by the same 2 people to Mr. Randolph. And I have all the contracts for all 3 tag agencies, and they're all from his top donors, which was reported by the Orlando Sentinel.
All right, Mr. Randolph, did you want to give us an explanation, a response to that?
Sure.
Sorry.
Well, let me be clear. There's no foundation to these absurdities. Mr. Freeman's just trying to hang his hat onto anything that he can explain away while he's running, instead of admitting that it's his failed attempt to extort Comcast for $2.5 million on a failed tax deed that he bought. We have both followed the spirit and the letter of the laws in all our contracting and vendors, including these contracts. This is not an easy business to conduct, but like I've mentioned, any portion of the DMV is a beast that never slows down, and you cannot have disruptions. These 2 PTAs have businesses in at least 20 counties, but in fact, we are one of the few that have both of them operating, and that's because I wanted to ensure there was competition for dealer work that helped keep everything fair and reasonable. Mr. Bell and Mr. Strochak are donors all over the state and to many and various levels of government, both Democrats and Republicans. Do I like fundraising? No, and any candidate that says otherwise lying, but it's no different than anyone else's fundraising efforts. But I'm also not going to tie my hands behind my back for a self-proclaimed millionaire who likes to go around allegedly brandishing guns at people while trying to extort their neighborhoods and cut off 911 services, who doesn't pay his property taxes for 4 years, and who, according to the federal government website, defaulted on a $102,000 PPP loan because the bank who issued the loan can't prove that it was a legitimate business. I say self-proclaimed because his financial disclosure is a mess, He claimed to be worth $1 million, but only reported a $35,000 bank account and $100,000 in household goods. He wants to be a tax collector, but can't even figure it out to get to $1 million net worth. The asset side has to be at least $1 million before you add in his $400,000 in reported liabilities. So Mr. Freeman's just trying to cover up the fact that he's just mad that he thought he was going to be a millionaire by extorting Comcast and Whispering Lake communities and scaring women and civilian neighborhood over his over his invalid tax deed. And that's what his entire campaign is about. And so, no, I don't see any problem whatsoever with the fundraising efforts that are no different than any other level of government. And I appreciate your time from both of you. Thank you.
Well, and since you brought up some things that were outside the scope of the question, we do have to let Mr. Freeman respond. Yes.
Number one, what he's talking about is a lawsuit against Mr. Ayala that bought my property after, bought it and became delinquent on his taxes. Has nothing to do with me. There's the lawsuit and there's a lawsuit number. Mr. Randolph sent this to the Orlando Sentinel. They didn't even print it because it was BS. Number one. Number two, I never pulled a gun on anybody. It was a crazy person that said I did, that was trying to take away a piece of land that I bought on a tax deed. And they succeeded because Mr. Randolph lowered the taxes from 2015 all the way through 2022 to null and void my tax deed. And he just received the money from the company that made money from that, which is Comcast. But Comcast didn't donate money to him under the name of Comcast. They donated under University City Travel Partners, for example. And Mr. Randolph is a pay-to-play politician. I hate to say that I didn't want to bring any personal problems into this. I've never pulled a gun on anybody. I've never had any taxes laid on any of my properties. And I haven't been 12 years at the head of the Orange County Tax Collector's Office receiving money from people and opening up private tag agencies for them after shutting down a public one. So I wanted him to explain that.
Okay, Mr. Randolph, I promise that you have a chance to respond, and here you
Sure.
go.
It's a shame that Mr. Freeman lives in conspiracy land. And again, the tax collector's office is a serious office. We deal with $3 billion of property taxes every year. And I think the last thing that Orange County needs is Joel Greenberg 2.0. And that's what Mr. Freeman is. He owned that land. His name is on that deed for 4 years of those property taxes not getting paid. And it was foreclosed upon on those 4 years. And the notice was sent to an address that his wife uses for a business, period. The $102,000 PPP loan that didn't get forgiven, it got discharged off because the bank couldn't prove that it was given to a legitimate business. That was Red Taz Beverages. You can go and see that on the government website. It's fine. As far as any of these other allegations, they're just absurd. And it like he doesn't even know what he's saying. By the way, the Comcast thing lowering their property taxes. I hate to tell you, Mr. Freeman, but you need to learn something about local government. That's the property appraiser that does the certificate of correction. By the way, it was the property appraiser who put that on the tax rolls when it never should have been on the tax rolls. Mm-hmm. I had nothing to do with that. I am a nominal party to every lawsuit that's gone against the property appraiser. And so your just lack of knowledge of the office just goes to show you're just trying to be Joel Greenpoint 2.0 because you want $2.5 million out of Comcast. The court documents from affidavits show that you brandished guns. You cut off 911 services to 11,000 people. That is in the court document from Comcast. Damaged their equipment that cut off 911 services to 11,000 people. Orange County does not need Joel Greenberg 2.0 in an office that deals with $3 billion a year, period. Absolutely, period.
Thank you. I would like to remind everybody that the Sentinel will be making an endorsement in this race. We certainly have a lot to go on. But we also encourage our viewers to not base their opinions just on our recommendations one way or the other. We have both candidates have websites, social media presences, and our excellent coverage of this race as well. We want people to look at both of these candidates, determine who they think will do a better job of managing this incredible duty that they have to Orange County voters. And don't forget that this race will be decided for the most part by Democratic voters in the August 20th primary. So on or before then, make sure that you get your vote in. And with that, we will move to closing statements. We once again ask the candidates to refrain from personal attacks, focus on what they would do. And we'll go with Mr. Freeman first.
First of all, I'm going to forget about Mr. Randolph's dubious business that he does with Andrew Bell and Jason Strochak and the private tag agencies. All that can be looked up. He worked for him, and I think they got $65,000. He refunded some of the money, over $30,000. It's all online. Anybody can go in there and look at it. He's been in there for 12 years getting money from donors to open private tag agencies. Now, what I would do, first of all, is remove the armed guards from the DMVs. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to have armed guards in a DMV office like Mr. Randolph has. Why would you have armed guards? You don't even have them in a bank. That means it's not being run efficiently. It's not being run safely. And the people are so mad when they leave that place that they need armed security guards walking around like a prison. That's one of the things that I would do. And that'd be a good idea for you also. Better appointment system. Yes, you make an appointment, but after you get there, it's in shambles. Bilingual. Not half of the staff is bilingual. Most of the people don't speak Spanish, Portuguese, which is 200,000 people here, or Creole for the Haitians that live in Orange County. Courtesy phones, courtesy copy machines that are needed there, they're not there. Safe and clean bathrooms and a unisex bathroom for transgender and gender neutral patrons. He doesn't have that. So a lot of things need to be done. He's going to go over his time. I'm not going to go over my time. Thank you so much for your time. And
I think you should feel free to go another 5 minutes.
He's talking over me, so
feel free. No, give him another 2 minutes. I insist on it. Give him another 2 minutes because I want to not only,
Gentlemen, we've had rules. We need to move forward.
Okay, Mr. Freeman, do you want to finish up, and then we'll go to Mr. Randolph?
The only thing that I want to say is there is a corrupt tax collector in Orange County today, which you have to look this up. He opened up 3 private tag agencies. I am not the tax collector. He's the one screwing up for his buddies, Andrew Bell and Jason Strochak. And that is provable. It's a fact. It's online. That's all I need to say. Do you want to keep a corrupt person for another 4 years, managing almost $4 billion in taxes? I wouldn't want that for me. And I'm an Orange County resident. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Randolph, if you could.
Fantastic. So first of all, more than my front staff do speak Spanish. And in fact, we have employees that speak Creole and Portuguese as well. And in fact, 2 months ago, we implemented technology that now we actually have little handheld translators that can translate into more than 500 languages. So we have no language barrier in the front. In all the new offices, I do actually have single use restrooms in both Lee Vista and West Oaks, and in my newer offices that we designed specifically when that started to become an issue, just for transgender and also for parents and changing stations and things like that. So that's just a lack of knowledge about what's going on. And by the way, if anybody doesn't think that you should have an armed guard, by the way, almost every tax collector in the state has an armed guard. And it's not because of angry people. It's because of the situation we live in now, where I have 100 people that's sitting in the office and it's a very soft target. I would be remorse if I didn't have some security for a potential 100 people sitting in there. And so, but let's get back to really what's going, what the next 4 years is about. Again, this is a serious office. We don't need Joel Greenberg 2.0 over there brandishing guns against citizens and, trying to extort Comcast for $2.5 million. That's in the court document, by the way. I'm not making that number up. But you know what? On the DMV side, we've tamed that beast. It's a monster. It's a hard to keep down. But that taming came with a lot of money and resources, and the state hasn't increased the fees we're getting for those transactions for more than 40 years. As a result, we lose $20 million a year on that side of the house, and we make that up through property taxes. We've got to find ways to provide great customer service without continued huge unsustainable investments. And again, I go back to, and I can put a piece of paper on the ground that says 78% of appointments are seen within 15 minutes. So Mr. Freeman's allegations about people waiting around for it's just a lie. It's just him trying to come up and hang his hat on something other than the fact that he's mad that he's not a multimillionaire from extorting Comcast in Whispering Lakes neighborhood while he's brandishing a gun at some poor HOA woman. But another challenge is a vastly underfunded state agency in DHSMV, which is falling so far behind in technology and staffing that it's become a huge issue for fraud and cybersecurity. It'd be an hour to take me to explain it all, but in essence, the next 4 years is going to be about how those programs will require investment from other big counties as well. So you can tell, once again, this is a serious office, serious times, and serious challenges. We don't need Joel Greenberg 2.0. We need serious people leading this office and who know what they're doing in life. And by the way, those PTAs operate in more than half the counties in this state because we've all had to try to partnership to figure out
how much time are you going to give them?
The public. Hey, I did not interrupt you. How much time?
Really?
Because
not to their buddies, not to their friends.
Please mute yourself like I muted myself. Do not be Donald Trump over there.
Florida Ethics Committee will hear about
Oh, you want to file a Florida ethics? What about your financial disclosure that claimed $1 million?
Has nothing to do with the tax collector's office.
Come on.
Gentlemen, we
Florida
have
Ethics Committee.
Go back and
brand
at somebody else in your neighborhood.
If I win or
I'm
lose.
tired of you
Gentlemen, I'm going to mute your microphone.
around.
Unethical.
But I'm trying to.
Completely unethical.
Gentlemen, I've muted your microphones. Our closing statement time is over. So
yes, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
We do appreciate you agreeing to appear with us. And I am sorry to our readers that things got out of control, but we want everybody to be aware that we wish both of these candidates the best of luck, and that we very much hope that people remember to vote on August 20th.